Family Association's Noonday Get Together, where we look at the world through a biblical worldview. AFA Today.
Back with you from New York, and so glad to be with you each weekday at this same time, where we take a look at what's going on in the headlines, and from there try to extrapolate some application and some meaning as to how it affects the average American that's listening today. And I'm grateful for the good work of the Lawfare Project and the work that Brooke and her team do there on a daily basis, just watchdogging these issues for us, because as you know, you're busy living life. I just think of my lovely bride. She's got so much on her plate. She's managing a household. How would the average American ever know some of the stuff that is going on if it weren't for the efforts of groups like Brooke Goldstein and the Lawfare Project? She's the CEO there, and you can find out more about what they do at thelawfareproject.org. And Brooke, we were talking in the first segment about the use of third-party doctrine to basically spy on people's metadata. You've basically revealed that it doesn't matter to what degree they claim that it's just being used for metadata. If it's encoded and if it's given to a third party, they could conceivably use that argument to listen to even the contents of calls and so forth themselves. This last weekend, there was a story that broke, and the Drudge Report had it up for a couple of days. The National Review writes about it today, John Fund in his article, but let me just read you some of this and get your reaction. This spring, writes John Fund, House Oversight and Government Reform Committee lawyers were told by HHS, that's Health and Human Services, that despite the fact that what they are calling patient navigators, which are these people that they're going to employ to try to find folks' services through the new Health and Human Services Obamacare legislation, that despite the fact that these navigators will have access to sensitive data such as Social Security numbers, tax returns, et cetera, that they're not going to require criminal background checks for any of the people that are going to be handling this data. And in fact, the article by John Fund, and again, I have this linked on the afatoday.com page and on the Calvin McCullough Facebook page, there's actually a very real concern that people with criminal backgrounds will have all kinds of access that is being gathered and garnered and harnessed by the government, and these low-level employees that are going to be searching these records to try to get people enrolled in the right programs are actually going to have more information about the average American than anyone has ever had. And Brooke, when you think of the liberties that the government is already willing to take to step into people's privacy and where they're going, how does any of this resonate with you when you assess what Obamacare looks like from this perspective?
And also just to add in how the government, especially the IRS, is so ready and willing apparently to abuse that authority, it's very, very scary. And I think that even those, like Andy McCarthy, for example, who have written somewhat unfavorably and justifying the NSA surveillance program, even he has a problem with the Federal Data Services Hub, which I think is something that was accurately described by Stephen Parente in the USA Today column as an unprecedented consolidation of personal data. It is something that has never happened before in the history of the United States. And what's happening is under the guise of enforcing Obamacare, the Federal Data Services Hub, which, by the way, was supposed to be kept secret until a member of Congress, his name eludes me right now, actually forced the executive branch to reveal this. What the Federal Data Services Hub is doing is it's collecting your Social Security number, your income, the size of your family, your citizenship and immigration status, your incarceration status, your health coverage status, and all that type of personal information. And it is consolidating it into a hub that not only the Health and Human Services has access to, but also the IRS has access to, the Department of Homeland Security has access to. And what the worst part about it is that without your consent, the government is now hiring a wide range of individuals who, as you mentioned, have no background check. There's no criminal background check. There's no requirement that these individuals even have a high school diploma. They're allowing them to have, they're paying them an hourly rate to have access to all of your personal information. And all of this is done again under the guise of allowing people to apply for subsidies for Obamacare. And to make matters even worse, what is incredibly insulting is now the executive branch has enlisted a bunch of celebrities because they think that the American public is too stupid to understand the implications of this federal data hub, and we have to be lectured to by a bunch of people in Hollywood who are, you know, looking at precedents, going to create YouTube videos, basically, you know, comedy videos making fun of us if we don't believe in Obamacare and convincing us that this is the cool thing to do. This is a very, very scary prospect. And it's almost an admission of failure by the executive branch of the government and their inability to describe this Obamacare to us and to describe and convince us that this is the right thing to do, that now they're going to enlist a bunch of celebrities because apparently they're, you know, better qualified to speak to the public about this 1,200-page document that's called Obamacare.
Right. Brooke, let me ask you a very simple question. You study the issue of how, and this is what lawfare is all about, but you study how the laws are used and twisted to basically, by different groups that have different agendas, subvert the rights of the American citizen in a free culture. When you compare the data hub operation to just, for example, the NSA spying of the metadata from the phone companies, how much bigger is this part of government moving into our lives and swallowing up our privacy by comparison? What's the difference in terms of the scope of what they're going to be able to do here?
Well, first of all, let me just clarify. We don't even know what the scope really of the NSA spying program is because it's all being leaked illegally by Edward Snowden. But giving the administration credit, going on the assumption that all the NSA is doing is collecting this telephony metadata and then purging it after 5 years and not doing any type of analysis of it that would violate our Fourth Amendment rights. I think the Federal Data Services Hub is exactly the opposite. It is a massive, massive collections agency. The potential for the Federal Data Hub to be abused is huge. Imagine hiring somebody without a criminal background check, without a high school diploma, and paying them to sift through your private information.
Right, right. Well, you talk about, I mean, in the world of politics, people talk about opposition research all the time. I mean, what would keep a party that was in power, an administration that was in power, from hiring at the lowest level all of these minions that would work for them to do nothing but identify people that they could, punish in some way for not holding to a particular political viewpoint. When you know this much information about the average person, and you have it at basically a call-up command in a database that's as searchable as a spreadsheet, it seems to me we're not talking about just a little bit of freedom being taken away. We're talking about the government wholly owning the individual from the standpoint of knowing everything they can about them and to some degree everything that they think, and to some degree how they live their lives on every level. I've never imagined something this big and this intrusive and this dangerous, but in reality, this data hub could be the end of free America. Am I overstating the case in that?
You know, I think all you have to do is just, I mean, we're in the age of WikiLeaks right now. This is the age of the IRS scandal. But to make matters even worse, the gross negligence that is being exhibited by not just the Department of Homeland Security, but by those who are enacting the Federal Data Hub itself, by only giving a 30-hour online course to this so-called, it's a community activist, to learn this 1,200 page document called Obamacare, or referred to as Obamacare, when it's a law that is so complex that, frankly, even I don't understand it.
And you're a very accomplished attorney at that.
The potential for the fact that this is being carried out with such negligence, that the potential not just for the government, but for an individual who has been convicted, for example, of identity theft, simply downloading that information or recording that information, and that individual using that information against you, is so high that the entire, program is questionable. And also, the mainstream media hasn't really done its job exposing the American public to what exactly is going on. I mean, this is just breaking news, this federal data hub. And I also I found out, and now I've actually lost his name. I found the name. Oh, right. It's Senate Finance Committee Chairman Max Baucus, who's a Democrat, who forced the government to reveal that the hub was basically taking place.
Yeah.
And this was just recently. So this is something that even the government wants to keep secret, and obviously for good reason, because they understand the American public is going to be absolutely outraged.
Okay, I don't want to leave folks on a negative note here. But Brooke Goldstein, the Lawfare Project is her group, and thelawfareproject.org is the group that is involved in these matters and bringing them to our attention. First of all, I would recommend, if you're watching or listening today, that you get on thelawfareproject.org and get their free newsletter. It is a wealth of information when they send you new updates on things that you need to be aware of. We said on this show a few weeks ago that the process of terrorist broadcast networks being put over the air in America, we wouldn't have heard about that story had it not been for Brooke and the Lawfare Project. This is a group that is watching government, that is watching how laws are being used and watching how they intersect with the rights of American citizens and free people. And we really do owe them a huge debt of gratitude. But, Brooke, I want people to get on your website and to interact with you. Go to your events if they're in New York when you have them, or other places as they are scheduled, but also to get the newsletter. But, Brooke, what are some other practical things? How should Americans be approaching news like this? Is this panic time? What are some 1, 2, or 3 options that American citizens have to begin to respond to this kind of overreach by the government, or its attempted overreach, at least in Obamacare?
Well, first of all, I really appreciate you mentioning the Lawfare Project. I think it's absolutely essential that the American public keeps itself informed, that it supports not-for-profit organizations like the Lawfare Project. We're a 501c3 not-for-profit that spend our time and our efforts exposing these issues, writing about them. It's also important to support those members of Congress who are now going on the offense and challenging these issues. It's always important to write your senators and write your congressmen and women and express to them that you're very concerned and that you appreciate when they raise these issues in the House. I think, it's very important to get in touch with Senate Finance Committee Chairman Max Baucus. I think that's how you pronounce his last name.
Baucus, yeah, from Montana.
Yeah, from Montana, exactly. And write him a letter telling him how much you appreciated the fact that he exposed the federal hub. And again, keep yourself informed, because all of these issues are going to play out in the court of public opinion as much as they're going to play in the Supreme Court as well, in courts of law. So, and again, write the media, write op-eds, challenge them when they don't report on these issues. Tell them that you're watching and these are newsworthy stories that you want to hear about.
Yeah. Well, and what I'm grateful for, Brooke, is that the network that this show is carried on is one that is committed to telling the truth of those untold stories. And we're grateful for the opportunity to have this discussion. But, friends, what Brooke is saying is truly important. If you believe that privacy is more than just an idea, it's not just a kind of a nice thought, but it actually counts for something. If the Fourth Amendment counts for something, then this is really something that you should be aware of, tell your friends about, get them to thelawfareproject.org, get them to this broadcast every day as we continue to give you updates. and not just inform yourself, but arm yourself with information so that you can then engage others. If we do not begin to speak back, then we will have no recourse when, if or when the worst happens, and we certainly don't want to see that happen. Brooke, do me a favor. Please thank your coworkers there, both Ben and Kara, and the good folks that are helping you every single day. And again, I want people to sign up for the newsletter, thelawfareproject.org. And Brooke Goldstein, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right. Kevin McCullough, when we continue on AFA Today, I want to take some of your calls, your reaction to what you have just heard at 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. The rights of your privacy and the privacy you thought you had up until your phone records were taken was one thing. Now Obamacare seeks to put all of your records and give access to many different branches of government. Your thoughts on this next. 888-589-8840 on AFA Today. I'm Kevin McCullough. Stay with us.